there, welcome to another Photoshop tutorial from Tutcast.com, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you a nice stylized method of creating blood in Photoshop. Now in front of you we have the Watchmen blood. On the left we have the original Watchmen blood from the posters, and on the right is the one that we're going to be creating, a little bit more stylistic. It can be applied to any sort of blood splatter you want. I'm going to be showing you the layer styles that I'm going to be adding, and if you want to follow along with this tutorial as best as possible, head over to tutcast.com/watchmen where you can download the PSD file which I've included for you. In the PSD file, I have included the blood splatter shape and two optional layers, as you can see here, which I will discuss in a few minutes. So let's begin. We're going to start by accessing our Layer Styles dialog box by going to Layer, Layer Style, and then we're going to start with Bevel and Emboss. And I'm going to take you through the settings that I used for this example, but depending on the size and shape of your blood splatter, if you do create a custom one, you may have to adjust the settings to get the desired effect. So let's begin. We're going to start with the default inner bevel. Keep it at smooth, depth is at 100, direction is up. For the size, we're going to set it to 8, and for soften, we're going to set a value of 10. Now heading down to the shading area, we're going to set the angle to -70 and the altitude to 30. You'll probably see 120 and 30 as default. Set it to -70 and 30. The gloss contour we're going to set to the fourth option, which is the Cove option. We're going to set the highlight mode to overlay. Make sure it's at white and 100% opacity. Shadow mode, we're going to keep it at multiply, and the opacity is going to be set down to around 30%. Now on the left hand side we're going to head up to inner shadow. This we're going to set to linear burn right over here. The opacity is going to be set to 35%. The angle we're going to turn off use global light and set it to -160. Just like that. The distance is going to be 8. 0 for choke, and the size will be 21. Now down here under contour, we're going to set it to the second option, which is cone. There we go. And if we move this over, we can see it's starting to take shape, but we have a few other things to do. We're going to head to inner glow, and we're going to add a nice inner glow to our layer. We're going to change the blend mode to overlay, make sure it's at 100%, and change the color to white. Just like that. We're going to make sure it's at soften, but the source is going to be in the center. And for size, we're going to change it to 80, just like that. And for the contour, we're going to select the last one on the first row, which is Gaussian. And that's pretty much about it for this layer. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the overall opacity down to around 90%, just to give it a little bit of a see-through effect right in that area there. And we're going to click OK. Now in the PSD file, I have included two additional layers, which are the shadows layer and the highlights layer. This just gives a little bit more of a stylistic effect to your blood splatters. The highlights can be done in a variety of ways. You can use the elliptical marquee tool, the elliptical shape tool, any method you want. It's basically just circles filled in with a nice white color and the opacity turned down a tiny little bit. For the shadows, it's basically, if we turn this to normal, it's basically the same layer in gray. Then I use the burn tool and the dodge tool to give a little bit more highlights and a few shadows at the top there. And then change the opacity down to overlay. And that's pretty much about it. You can use this method on any type of blood splatter you want. Doesn't have to be this one. But again, depending on the size and shape of your blood splatter, you may have to adjust the layer style settings a little bit to get that desired effect. So I hope you learned something from this tutorial. Make sure to head over to tutcast.com/watchmen if you want to download this PSD file. And until next time, this is Howard from tutcast.com. Take care.